This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Bryan Driscoll, and I'm here with Eric Brewer. What's up, man?
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Yeah, you're over on York. I'm over here in Pittsburgh, other side.
You got the Pittsburgh shirt on, too. Steelers colors, the whole deal working.
You know how we roll.
I do. Hardcore.
Yeah, so you're in York, PA, right? Like that's a way smaller market, right?
It's pretty small.
What do you think the population is?
York County's 400,000 people.
Okay. So, and a little background on you, like I know you guys are crushing it. How many deals are you doing per year?
We should land around the 400 mark this year, depending on if everything stays consistent with the way that it's been the first almost 3 quarters. We should land around 400.
All right. Yeah, that's really solid, especially because I talked to a lot of investors. They're like, oh, we're in small areas. It doesn't work. We can't do it. Yeah. You're over there with 400,000 population crushing it.
Well, we do go. So that's where I'm based out of. We touch basically every county that borders York County. So we go about an hour and 20 minutes in every direction.
Okay.
Basically just to get to a population of about 1.6 million. So our home market, York County, is 400,000 people. But and in order to grow, we've over the years have slowly gone one market over, one county over, and it's been relatively painless because the demographics don't change a whole lot from one county to the next here.
Yeah. Okay.
Until you get to Pittsburgh, then you people are just way different than anybody out here. It's like, we're relatively normal and keep to ourselves, and you guys are crazy and run wild out there. But so it's a 4-hour drive from here before you run into crazy people.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say Pittsburgh's a what do they call it? A city with a drinking problem and a football problem or something. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, it's better than going the other direction east towards Philly. That's a mess over that way. So I would much rather drive 4 hours west and land in Pittsburgh than an hour and a half east and land in Philly.
I like it. So, hey, Eric, give everyone a little bit background on like what your experience, because you were selling cars, right? And you grew this empire.
Yeah. I was in the U.S. Army and did that and got out of the U.S. Army, came home. There was really no civilian application of my training that I got in the military. So I came back, and first thing I did was screw around for a couple months just because I was so happy to be out of the military and have some freedom. So, and then I actually applied for a job in a newspaper, and it was at a Mercedes dealership and a Toyota franchise. And I think the formal name of the title was Lot Porter. And I read the brief description of the job, and it was like delivering and moving cars. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to drive around Mercedes and Toyotas. So I went and applied for the job. And that's how I got my start. I started there as parking cars, and then eventually was given the opportunity to move into the service department. And then it was promoted to an assistant service manager, and then caught the eye of the sales manager and was recruited to go work in sales, and then moved into sales. And then eventually when I left, I was the general sales manager of a pretty large dealership. We were selling 400 to 500 cars a month with a couple satellite lots, used cars, new cars, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's how I sort of that was my first quote unquote real job. And then after 8 years that I just got burned out. Car business, especially back then, was very demanding from an hours perspective. I mean, I would get to work at 10 of 8 and wouldn't leave till 10 after 10. So it was just long days, 6 days a week in most cases. And it's kind of a grind. I mean, it's when people go in to buy a car, they are very skeptical of the salesperson. So felt like I was fighting an uphill battle all day. And I just made a decision I was ready for a change. Right around that time, I just had my first child. So my son was born. And it was really important to me that I be a good father and be available, and just knew I couldn't maintain those hours and those commitments and be a good dad. At least I wasn't able to balance it. I couldn't figure it out. Some people do. I didn't see any end in sight. So decided to get out of the car business and did some soul searching, poked around a little bit, tried to figure out what I was good at, and actually landed in mortgages. And because I'd figured I wanted to get into real estate and thought that it would be wise to learn the finance portion of real estate because that was my path. And really one of the things that I think helped us be so successful at the car dealership is we had a very good understanding of finance and how to help people get a lower payment, or how to help them get out of a car if they owe a little bit too much money, or how to leverage leases. Like back then, no one really talked about leases. We really understood leases and how you could get more car basically for less money. So started doing mortgages, and I was basically cold calling refis and did pretty well, like in a short period of time. And I was like, my God, I made $2,000 on a refinance where I used to have to beg somebody to buy a car for 4 hours to make $180. And I was in. It was like, this real estate gig is pretty awesome. And after about 6 months of doing that, the owner of the car dealer called me, and he had hired a president to take over the company, and retired for about 6 months and got bored, and was like, hey, I heard you're, working in real estate, and I was thinking about like flipping houses, and I did some homework on it, and I'd love to work with you. And we went to lunch and talked about it, and I quit my job the next day at the mortgage refi place, and me and my partner started flipping houses. So that's the short version of the time. There was a bunch of crap and stuff and ups and downs and all kinds of stuff that happened in between, but those are the highlights.
Yeah. Yeah. The ups and downs are what kind of make the ride fun and also suck.
Yes.
Yeah. Some of them sting. I know you probably got some of them. Some of them hurt.
I did. I started in 2005. So my first sting came about 3 years later.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a rough one.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice. So, okay. So you're in real estate now. Now, how did you go from you and your partner at that table getting lunch to where you're at now? When did you meet up with him? Like when was that?
2005, late 2005, beginning of 2006.
Oh, that's when you met up with a partner?
Correct. We actually enrolled in a brick and mortar house flipping school called Investors United in Baltimore County. And they have a 12-month curriculum that teaches you how to lead gen. It teaches you the assignment of a contract. You got to remember back in 2015, it wasn't like it is today where you can go into YouTube and, or listen to a bunch of really good podcasts like this and get that information. Like there wasn't a lot of people in 2005 wholesaling real estate. It was a pretty well-kept secret. And he heard a radio commercial about this place that teaches it. So we enrolled. We spent, I don't remember what it was like $15,000 or something for 1 year of curriculum, and went down, and they taught you how to build a list and pull probates and all this other stuff, and what an assignment agreement was, and different ways to build a buyer's list, and how to calculate a renovation cost, how to pull. They taught you how to do the deal. So we went to that. We were there for like 4 months, and they got into like negotiating and advertising. We were like, I think we know this part. And we got up and walked out and never went back, and went up and put up a bunch of billboards and started doing TV advertising. And our first year bought 70 homes. And at that point, we did everything was fix and flip. Every house we bought, we fixed up and resold. So we might have done 3 assignments our first year. And a lot of that was because we bought the majority of our homes off the MLS. In 2005 and 2006, there was lots of bank owns and not many investors. And I was very blessed that my business partner, because of his, success in the car business, we actually had cash. So, a lot of wholesalers get into this business because you don't need money. I had the benefit of having a partner that had plenty of it. So it was easy for us. We just go buy bank-owned property, make sure we got a good deal, and renovate it. It was kind of like everything we had done in the car business. You go to an auction, you buy a car that's got bald tires, no brakes, and needs a paint job, and you do all that stuff. Then you put it on the lot, and someone pays you retail for it. So to us, it was like, I wouldn't dare say it was easy. We made a lot of mistakes, particularly on the construction side, but it felt a lot like what we had always done in the car business. And we just applied really the stuff that we had learned from there to houses, and most of it stuck. So we started out buying, most of our deals on the MLS, got an occasional direct to seller deal. And that was it. We were fixing and flipping houses and running ads in the newspaper to sell our house, and sifting through 30 bad credit applications, just like I did in the car business, to find one that could get approved for a mortgage, and created a relationship with a local loan officer that would, give our deal special attention and help our people get approved. And so we FISBO'd everything, which was helpful because it helped with margins when you're selling a $150,000 house and you're not paying, 6 or 7% commission. That 10,000 was, half of our profit. So that was how we started the business. And then just incrementally grew. It was like, man, we're buying a bunch of houses. We need someone to oversee construction. So we hired a project manager, hired a manager to manage the project managers, realized I couldn't keep up with leads anymore from TV and advertising. So we hired, what would be known today as a lead manager, to help us field all of these incoming calls. Then we hired an acquisitions person to go out, make the offers. We hired an on-market person that was going out and making all these offers on the MLS. And next thing you know, we have 15 people running around. Today we have 46. So, we went from a couple guys just buying and selling homes to we need some help, let's hire some people, to a bunch of guys that didn't know how to manage or lead people. So we burned through some good people and, learned some lessons there. And then slowly started to learn how to build a team, how to manage a team, how to lead a team. And slowly but surely saw some growth year over year to where we are today, with the amount of people that we're fortunate to have that show up for us each and every day and do their best. And we do a considerable amount of volume, and everybody makes pretty good money.
Yeah. I've worked with some people on your team too. Like, how did you build? Because I know this is a question that a lot of people have when hiring and building teams. Like, your team's on point. Like, how did you build and have the right and get those right people on a team? I know, like, if an email goes over, it's coming back quickly. It's got answers, everything. Like, you have something good going on there.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing, before I give you the answer, I want to make sure I give you the backstory. I've failed at doing that 30 times. Hired the wrong person, hired the right person, didn't set clear expectations or give them the resources they need or train them correctly. So over time, when I made those mistakes, one thing that's always really, I don't know if it's just my personality or what, but when someone would leave, whether we fired them or they made the decision to leave, it always really, really stung. And, I wish it didn't, because it's sort of the nature of business that you'll have people that come and go no matter how great of a person they are or how great of a leader you are. There's some natural turnover that happens. People's lives change. They move, they get married. There's just it's stuff. Life pops up. And, but over time, I think because I wouldn't say hurt. Maybe that's the word. It hurt me when I would lose people. And I really just about 6 years ago made it a focus of mine to learn how to be a better manager and then how to become a good leader. And so the result is something that I've caught myself saying more than once is you can't hire great people until you become a great leader. So when I hear people that struggle with hiring or finding people or retaining people, it's not the market. It's not the lack of labor. It's not any outside circumstances. If you struggle to hire and retain people, you as the leader of the organization are 100% at fault. So I had to accept that responsibility and then make it my priority. My priority shifted from buying homes and selling homes and analyzing deals and getting lines of credit and raising private money to, I'm going to figure out the way that I can create an environment that extraordinary people beg me to work here. And then once they get here, I want to create an environment where I'm constantly begging them not to leave. Not right? Like just so you just try and create an environment to where they don't want to leave, because life does pop up. There are circumstances. And, the one thing I can tell you is when you have great people, they're going to get recruited, right? Like you've talked to some folks on our team, Benmont specifically, who's been with me almost 3 years. He runs the organization. I'm effectively not involved in any of the day-to-day. I'm sure he gets recruited, right? Because anybody that's paying attention to what's going on sees that the guy is an absolute hammer. He's got that balance of, driving accountability and creating a galvanizing environment that makes people want to compete. And then he just loves the shit out of people. He's just a nice guy. And I think that's the sort of paradox that a lot of leaders get stuck with, is like, accountability requires me to be rigid and tough and demanding. And I'm not able to show compassion or empathy or any interest in their personal life, if I'm going to do the other. And the fact is, they're not mutually exclusive. You have to be both. So,
yeah, that's interesting too. 'Cause I was even reading somewhere, like, when you put up your job postings, what do you focus on in the actual posting? I thought it was interesting when I was reading. Yeah.
So I was reading a job description I do some coaching, and I have a few investors that I work with that want to scale their business. And he sent me a job description. I looked over it and I was like halfway through and I was like, God, like, what is it about this? It's just, it's a labor to get through this. And it was like, you got to do this. You got to do that. You got to have this skill set. And I tried to put myself in, that person's position. And I was like, what are you going to do for me? Right? Like you got 90% of your job description tells me everything I have to give to you. Why the hell do I want to come work for you? And I said, what if we just turned this around and made 75% of the job description what we will give to our people? And then you got a little segment and then says, hey, if that sounds appealing and you have this skill set, I think we should talk. So we've sort of flipped that around, and our job descriptions, it's not even job descriptions, our ads are more about what they can expect and what type of environment, we promise that they'll be exposed to, what type of training opportunities will be provided. That's really how we craft our ads when we're looking to hire people. Is we want to make some pretty bold but deliverable promises to what they'll get when they come to work here. And then we just basically make sure that we don't omit the job that we're looking for and some of the skill set. There was somebody way smarter than me a long time ago said that you hire character and you train talent. But yet the way when we put out our job descriptions, it's all talent and no character. Right. So that's the spin that we put in, and we have no problems hiring. I can tell you that. And most times we end up, like the last time we wanted to add an acquisitions agent. I got a new COO. Benmont's getting promoted. We're going out and starting 2 different companies. So he's going to be COO of the parent company. We found a replacement for him here in our real estate company. The person applied to our acquisitions agent job. We only wanted to add 1. So I got a COO from that ad and 2 acquisitions agents, because they were both so darn good that I didn't want to choose one. I'm like, I don't want to choose one. I want both of them. So we'll figure out a way to make it work. If I'll just have to get another 40 appointments a month for the other person. But if they are who they think they are, those 40 appointments and what it costs for me to get those, I'll get a 5x return on it. So yeah, that we have a slightly different approach to recruiting and hiring. And then we carry that into our interviewing process. We spend a lot more time on who than we do what. If you think about that, like the normal interview process, what do you do? What have you done? What's your experience? Where we talk a lot about who we are as an organization and who they should be if they're going to be a good fit, and who they can count on us to be when they work here. And then there's some technical part of the job that they got to be able to do. But I mean, let's face it, we're not building rocket ships over here. This isn't SpaceX, right? We're we're a marketing and sales organization. If you can work together on a team and help buyers and sellers through a decision, a series of decisions, and guide them through that with empathy and knowledge, then you can work in real estate. So, yeah. And by the way, all three of those people have zero real estate experience. So
yeah, that's interesting. Anyone listening too, go back and listen to that again, because I see the same thing. Most people put out job application or job posts. It's like bullet point. It's like, do.
Like if it had a face, it would be going like this. It right. Should be going like this. Hey, come on over. Come grab a seat. Let's have a conversation. How you doing? Right. So don't do this. Do this.
Yes. Yeah. And especially like the A players, like sometimes the work environment's more important than the money.
Well, I can tell you the guy that ended up coming on board as our COO, he formally accepted the offer, I think late last week. He gave 30 days notice, but might start a little bit earlier. He applied for a sales job. So it came up in one of our interviews. Someone on our team said, "Hey, you applied for a sales job. What's up with that?" And he basically had been with this company, I think, for 10 years, had started at like a mid-level management position and ended up, at like the number 2 at the company. And he left because of bad leadership. There were some things that, he thought should be handled differently. And he saw that it was having some negative impact on the culture of the organization. And he started to feel it a little bit, where he just, it was hard to get up and go to work every day. He wasn't feeling it. And he did what he, based on what we talked about, and he described as a pretty darn good job of trying to communicate that in a non-confrontational way to the people that could make a difference. And he was on the road traveling, which is not something he loved about his job. He had an interaction in or around that period of time that had him feeling unsettled. And we're very active on social media as a company. We're an open book. We have a videographer that comes in here every day of the week and just records us being ourselves. And then we put it out on social media. And somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody shared the job ad with him. And it was, he had kind of been fed up with the leadership or lack thereof at the place that he was working. He was traveling when he would have rather been home with his family. And he's like, I'm done. And he filled out an application for sales, and he sent over his application, and I happened to look at it. And I was like, this guy's he'd make an awesome salesperson, but he might be a tad overqualified. And we weren't necessarily looking for a replacement of our COO, but we had we had been pushing these couple projects that we wanted to get started on further down the road, because my COO was still very involved in this business. We could never just quite get enough time to get these other opportunities off the ground. And I said, bro, here's our chance. This is our guy. And he's going to get you to freedom. And sure enough, we ran him through a series of assessments and interviews and conversations. And I think he went through 5 interviews, and he's excited to come on board. And to your point, the final thing that he said was like, I just want to be here. And that's how he answered the question about the sales job. He's like, I didn't care what job it was. I just wanted to be part of what I could see that this culture was like, and what this environment was like, and how you guys communicate, and the way that you treat your customers. And he's like, from the outside looking in, I just wanted to be a part of it. And if that meant that I had to be a salesperson after I've been a COO for 10 years, then damn it, that's what I'm going to do. And turns out that leap of faith on his part paid off for both of us. So yeah, man, it's awesome. It's I can tell you, I used to just hate hiring. For a bunch of different reasons. You'd have to sift through. I didn't know how to hire. I think it's one of the things as an entrepreneur for the longest time, we are clueless when it comes to actually how to recruit and hire talent. I'm a salesperson. I have a sales profile. If you follow DISC or PI, I am an extreme maverick. So when I sit down and I interview an operations person, before understanding like any of that behavioral assessment stuff or having a real knowledge or any experience around interviewing, all I ever did was hire salespeople. I hired salespeople for construction. I hired salespeople for operations. I hired salespeople for accounting. I had a bunch of messy desks, a ton of uncashed checks, and just crap everywhere. It was chaos, right? Because we grew our operation on the backs of salespeople. So it wasn't until I started investing in leadership, and part of leadership is understanding people and how to recruit and inspire and motivate and retain people, that I got a smidge better at the recruiting and interviewing process. And it's paid us, man, it's been the best investment we've ever made, is just getting down into the weeds of understanding people. And it's made us better at recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talents. And I think that's what you've seen, right? Like when you had mentioned you communicate with a few of our people, they're just stars, man. And they're working towards something that's bigger than a paycheck. We're real big on here and always talking about our bigger purpose and our core values. It comes up in literally every conversation. It's how we make decisions. So I think that's what you get when you get great people. You put them in the right seat, right? I learned not to put a salesperson in a construction seat. They're still a great person, but they're in the wrong seat and they're going to suffer. They're probably not going to like their job, and they generally probably won't do a pretty good job of it either. So I'm so fortunate to be able to have the people that we have, and I don't touch really any of those 400 deals. I don't have anything to do with them.
Yeah, that's really solid too. Like even on your team, like you have something very rare there, number one. And like everyone's working, like you're saying, towards a purpose, and they're building each other up. It's like they're enjoying what they're doing versus like a lot of times you talk to people, it's their job. You know, like I talk to your guys, they're pumped. They're working together. Like they're looking at things. Everyone's humble too. That's another thing. It's like, hey, if you got any tips, like just shoot them out, you know?
Yeah. That's one of our big core values is humility. And we want to take ownership for, the stuff that we're responsible for. So yeah, I mean, it's that didn't happen by accident. I mean, those people are like that because we clearly set those expectations and have those conversations. And then if someone gets a little sideways or does something that doesn't align with those, we care enough about them to bring them back in.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. So a little different topic here. So I see that you try to turn skinny leads into fat profits. Right?
Yeah.
So elaborate on what you do there. Cause I know a lot of people get leads. They're like, oh, they're so thin. They don't have much profit, things like that. Like, what are you doing on your side to actually turn them into worthwhile?
Yeah. So they're actually, they're actually not even, so where I've seen the biggest benefit is where they go like one layer below skinny. They're like anemic. They're vaporized. We've looked at, and this is since 2011, I've been paying close attention to this. And this is a buzzword everybody's talking about. I think what you're asking about is novations. So you want to pay attention to listen to this segment of the podcast specifically. If you've heard of novations, if you've even heard of them before, more than likely what you were taught's a lot different than the application that I've been able to sort of innovate and figure out. So when I look at a batch of 100, what I'll call net leads, right, where there's some semblance of interest in selling in a reasonable timeline. I'm talking to a decision maker and they're not asking $1 million for a $40,000 house. That for us is a net lead. That's somebody that we believe will pay off if we communicate with them the right way long enough. We have a good chance of converting it. So out of 100 net leads, we're generally going to be able to convert, and I see this nationwide too with other good operators, around 10%. So if I get 100 net leads, I should be able to do 10 wholesale deals or 10 BRRRR deals or 10 fix and flip deals. I'm going to be able to bring 10 pieces of inventory in at a price that makes sense. It's like, okay, well, what about the other 90? So I've looked at the other 90. Here's what I found. 50 of those 90 are long-term projects. We got multiple decision makers. They're not on the same page. Maybe I got no decision maker. I got a probate situation that's going to take 2 years to sort out. I got a bankruptcy situation. It's got hair on it. It's messy. Maybe they do want $1 million for a $40,000 house, and there's nothing I can do to convince them otherwise. Circumstances are going to have to change in order for them to be a more viable lead. So 50 of those 90, we just need to put into a long-term follow-up sequence, right? And then effectively, we're just making sure that we're top of mind when their situation changes, because it likely will. The other 40, and this is where I think, where we talk about skinny deals, or in most cases, they're not a deal. Let's go back to the 10% that we do buy. I use an analogy called a seller seesaw. And on one side, there's property condition or just condition, period. It can be life circumstances. And on the other side is motivation. As condition declines, as we know with a seesaw, the other side goes up. So the leads that we buy, right, they're normally condition, either the house is messed up or their marriage is messed up, one of the two. I mean, it's the reality of the situation, right? There's some job, there's some income, there's some taxes, there's condition issues, and it drives up motivation. That's the 10% that we buy. The 50 that we have no chance of buying, it's flipped. It's literally, there's no conditions in their life that would encourage them to sell at a discount. The property's in really good condition, and motivation is non-existent. It's down here. The 40 are like this. There's some motivation, and the condition is at maybe just a smidge above or below average or good. We don't ever do anything with those deals. We never convert those leads. Well, it's because why? Well, as a wholesaler, we assign real estate, and we assign real estate to typically a cash buyer or a hard money buyer that's an investor. So if there's minimum discount available, there's not enough to justify selling it to an investor. So with Novations, this balanced seller seesaw, this 40% of your leads can be capitalized on, because a novation is a financeable transaction. It can be sold to a retail buyer using financing. An assignment cannot. An assignment is not a lendable, insurable transaction for FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie Mae, Freddie. No one will finance it except for hard money or like a commercial line of credit or cash. So as wholesalers, we've always exclusively had to sell to a cash buyer population. So we always pass on these nice properties because our buyer wouldn't pay a high enough price for us to be able to make a margin. With Novations, the reason it's a financeable transaction is because novate actually means replace or new. So we don't assign our contract, we replace it. We actually conditionally release our original purchase agreement in exchange for the third party agreement to the retail buyer at retail prices. So now you can buy at wholesale and sell at retail. So it takes that 40% of our leads that we just don't convert. And here's what I know about the 40% now. So 40%, 40, right? Just use the number 40. If you stink at sales, you're not disciplined enough to present a novation to every customer that says no to your other offer, and you do a crappy job of follow-up, those people are still converting 5%. So that's two deals. If you stink at sales, but you're disciplined enough to present it to each and every person that says no, thank you, and you're still not good at follow-up, you're going to convert about 7%. If you're pretty good at sales, you present it to every customer, and you do a good job of keeping in touch with your customers, it's 15%. There's 6 more deals in every 100 net leads. 6 more deals, right? And you're not buying ugly houses. You're basically wholesaling retail properties to retail buyers. No cash, no renovate. That's the other thing. The old Novations was you bought a house, it needed work, you partnered with a seller, you did the rehab, and then you sold it and you split the profits. Phooey on that. Like, I can tell you, I've been rehabbing houses for 17 years. It's hard enough without having a stinking seller involved in the deal, right? No, thank you. And I'm sure there's a place for that. That may work for some people. I don't have the tolerance for it. This is basically, we call it, it's revenue without renovation. right? So if you're doing a good job of, and I've done over 1,000 of these, I think it's closer to 1,500, but I'm very cautious to not overstate that number. I know it's more than 1,000, and they're nice houses. And they're deals that in the wholesale model or fix and flip model, the BRRRR model, the math would just not make sense. Because all you're really looking at is what is its as is retail value minus the cost to sell it, which is between 4 to 6%, depending on the relationship with your real estate agent, minus the seller's net bottom line that you've negotiated. So anytime you're looking at a house that's north of 225, you can pay up to 88% of as is value and still make about 18 to 20 grand. So what you should be doing right now is mentally going back through your catalog of sellers of people that said, sounds really good, but I'm not in any hurry. Sounds really good, but I'm not going to give it away. And the house itself was in pretty good condition. Those are all novation opportunities that without understanding it, knowing it, implementing it, there's no other way to convert those deals other than to buy it, take it down, clean it out, wholesale it, but then you got to fund it. You got transfer tax. You got to, if you're selling to an FHA buyer, this is how I discovered Novations and sort of invented it to the model that we know today. Was I was just looking to avoid FHA seasoning. That's why I started it, because FHA made me hold the property for 90 days. No, I don't want to do that. My rehab's going to be done in 3. Why would I wait 90 days to get paid? So that's how I started it. And then once I realized the application, I was able to start using it on those 40, other opportunities that I was throwing away. So sorry, that's a long-winded version of the explanation, but that's Novations 101.
No, and that's really good too. I'm glad you explained all that, because a lot of investors are passing on that. Like somebody comes up and they want too much money. It's like, I can't do anything for you. Go list your house on the market, and they just have to walk away. So you're saying, I get a deal. They want too much money for me to buy it or wholesale or whatever. I can lock that up under contract, put it on the MLS, maybe put some paint up or small stuff, put it on up in the MLS, no paint or anything. Just like literally.
You got to remember, these are houses that remember the seller seesaw?
Yeah.
The condition is at or above good. It doesn't need any work. That's why they're saying no. That's why the number, if it needed paint, it needed all that other stuff, you would be able to typically buy it at a discount. Now, does that mean you wouldn't like knock the ugly off of it? And if it has like a pink front porch that doesn't match the tan siding, like, yeah, maybe you'd do that. But and then the only reason I'm very particular about that language is because for the longest time, Novations have been fix and flip rehab projects. So when people hear paint or something like that, they go, oh, that's the old style. I don't want to do that. I can tell you, we spend less than $1,500 on every novation we do. And it's typically not until we get to the appraisal or home inspection phase where there's a handrail missing from a set of stairs, or there's a GFCI near a water source that doesn't meet FHA guidelines, or there's a double tapped electrical breaker that doesn't pass a home inspection for safety issues. So generally you wouldn't have to do any renovations on the front end of these deals, because this client that's saying no to your wholesale offer normally has a pretty darn nice house.
Yeah. And this is huge too, because I talk with a lot of investors, like when they're building the rapport with the seller, find out like what their needs are. And this is another tool to have in your tool belt. Like,
yeah, we actually call it. So the one thing that we've done that's really cool, and we've even created like an explainer video. We have an infographic that we give the sellers. We call it an equity protection program. And the way that we've framed it is we said, hey, one of our core values at the company here is integrity. And we realize that, in order for us to carry a high level of integrity, when our purpose is to positively impact the community, if we meet with 10 homeowners and we only are able to offer assistance to one, to us, that feels like we're out of integrity. We're not doing what we said we were going to do. So we sat down as an organization and said, how can we pay our clients more money and still maintain the integrity of the investment? And we didn't leave until we came up with an answer. And this is what we found. And we're pleased to share that with you as a seller. It's called our equity protection program. It helps you protect more of the equity in your home, but still experience the ease of what it's like to sell to an investor cash buyer, but not have to sell at investor cash buyer prices.
Now, you'll help people do this, right? Like you'll help investors learn how to do this so they don't have to take all the punches in the face, figuring it out in the school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We do. I presented on this at Collective Genius, a mastermind that I've been in for about 5 years. I presented on it like 4 years ago. There was a line of people outside the door waiting for me when I was finished. And I spent, 100 hours the next quarter on Zoom calls and with people's title attorneys and their real estate brokers. And everybody's like, what is it? What are you talking about? Like, how are you doing this? And I got a full library of documents. I was, no problem. I'll send it over. Here's the addendum. No problem. I'll send it over. Here's a copy of the HUD. No problem. But I got to a point where I was like, I either will not be able to continue to help people do this, or I'm going to have to charge because I need to get people to help me. I need to take all of this knowledge I have out of my brain and put it into a way that they can understand it. I need people that can, take these documents and put them into a format that they can be used across multiple markets. Cause I was using a Pennsylvania contract. A lot of my friends that came to me for help with this and Collective Genius they're all over the country. I mean, New York, Florida, Missouri, Texas, New Jersey, like all over the place. And, so they needed help with the contract. So we've created documents that are applicable in nearly every state. And so we offer we call it a mastery course. It's available at brewermethod.com. And we give you the full library of documents. There's like 15 unique documents that I've created that starts a deal, list a deal, because there's a set of documents you need to list a deal in the MLS, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. There's a way to go about getting the seller's disclosure filled out. There's a power of attorney that can be very useful if you do it correctly in these transactions. There's a way that you have to introduce the file to a title company, because I can tell you, if you send over to a title company a purchase agreement, a novation addendum, a power of attorney, and a third-party contract where you're making $45,000 profit, their face will melt, right? So I've learned that you got to introduce these deals in a phased approach. It's like, hey, Bryan, I'm going to send you over a purchase agreement. I'm buying this house. I love it. I got a good deal. They're like, oh, no problem. We'll get started on the title work. 2 days later, Bryan, hey, seller, they're all about convenience. They asked me if there's any way you could draw up a limited power of attorney so that they don't have to sign all these settlement dockets. Oh, no sweat, Eric. We'll get that done for you right away. 3 weeks later, Bryan, you'll never guess what? We found a buyer for this house. I'm sure you saw in the language in our contract, we have the ability to assign it or novate it. The seller's going to go ahead and take title directly. They're using a lender. We'll just get paid at closing outside of the seller's proceeds. Sound good? They go, yeah, let me take a look at it. Send it over. I'll get it done for you. That's how that goes in a phased approach versus you send it over all at once and they go, and they literally, they look like they're, having convulsions or something because they can't figure it out. This is very, very new to people, and particularly lawyers and title companies. Whatever they don't understand, they tend to reject. So we help with that process. And then how do you sell it? How do you facilitate the conversation with a buyer, a buyer's agent, a buyer's lender, all that good stuff. So they get all the documents. We have a Novation calculator. Everybody knows how to calculate a wholesale offer. Nobody knows how to calculate a Novation offer. We built a Novation calculator. Shows you exactly how much you can pay based on the profit that you want to earn. What else do they get? We do a 2-hour onboarding call with the investor, and we prefer for them to have their team on that call, because really lead managers should know this. Because a lot of people, lead managers, they call in and they're going, our house is in really good shape. Most people will disqualify that lead at the lead management phase, because they're going to go, there's no motivation there. The condition's perfect, right? They're back to the seller seesaw we talked about. So we have their whole team on a 2-hour onboarding call where we just teach the living snot out of it. We go from start to finish. Then I've recorded, probably 10 hours worth of video that's broken down into the 11 steps of how to purchase, how to list, how to ratify, how to close, how to get paid on those deals. We broke them down into 10 or 11 modules that people can go back and watch those videos whenever they want. And then we give them 3 months of weekly coaching calls where we're just diving back into the stuff, because we really want to make sure I didn't grow up in education. I didn't grow up being an influencer. I've just been doing this, for my own good for the longest time. And I kind of got pushed into selling this product by my good friend, Steve Trang. He's like, dude, this is crazy. Like, you should be telling more people about this. And, so I do not want to teach people novations and charge them money and be done. I want to see them through to their first 2 to 3 transactions. So, because once they've done their tours, that's how you really know that someone gets it. Once they've done 2 or 3 deals, they've been through the process, 2 or 3 times, they understand it. And now they can really go out and really apply the method because they understand. I had someone on our Facebook page for the Brewer method the other day said, can I novate a commercial property? And it was funny. One of the other students says, if you can assign it, you can novate it. You're just selling to a different buyer. So it sounds like, and I think those two ended up JVing because the one guy had commercial experience, the other guy didn't. So that's a pretty cool part of that. We have a exclusive Facebook page that anybody that goes through the course gets access to.
That stuff's huge. Now, let me ask you this. Who's the target audience, or who are the right people for this? Like, that's not really for the noobs. Like, what type of people are the best fit for the Brewer method? We've
seen the people that have the most success are already doing 5 to 50 deals a year. Right. Because if you're doing 5 deals, you're doing one every 60 days, you're probably locking up at least 1 or 2 contracts. Once you've done enough deals where you understand how to communicate to a seller, how to properly, morally, and legally complete an acquisitions contract, you've got a relationship with a title company, you have some type of relationship or have access to a real estate agent that can help you get the deal in the MLS. I would say it would be a lot for a new person to learn, but the people that have the most and the quickest success with this are wholesalers that are already doing direct to seller, that are doing, it's probably closer to 10 deals a year, 1 a month. Because they get it, right? Like they know how to take a conversation and pivot it from, Bryan, that sounds good, but I just can't sell it for that, to, hey buddy, I'd be willing to share a program with you that we've recently rolled out. It's called our Equity Protection Program. It's a great way for you to get more money for your house. And I'm really only going to need a little flexibility from you on 2 things. And that's reasonable access. And if you would just permit me to bring the property to the open market, I think I can get you very close, maybe even all the way up to that number that you'd shared with me. So the language like that we teach there is very important. We say reasonable access. I don't say showings, because showings sounds like a real estate agent. I don't say MLS. I say open market for that exact same reason. So people are like, why wouldn't they just list it? And I was like, well, I'll tell you why. Because we create a process and an experience that doesn't feel like them listing it, right? So it comes up with 95% of investors that we teach this to go, why wouldn't they just list it? It never comes up with the seller because it doesn't feel like a listing, right? They're still getting as is, no inspections, no fees. All of that stuff that comes from that retail transaction is our job. We have to handle all those repairs and work with the appraiser and pay the real estate agent commission. The seller is still guaranteed they could get the amount of money that we agreed on. They're not impacted at all by all of that stuff. So my willingness and ability to go out and participate in that retail transaction and all of the crap that comes with it is what basically creates the spread or the equity for me to be able to make a little bit of profit. So I do more work, I make a little bit more money. The seller does no work, they make a fair amount of money for doing no work, right? So that's how it works.
That's cool. Yeah. And the seller gets the peace of mind. They don't have to deal. Like you're saying, they don't want to list in the market because they don't want to deal with all these people coming through the house, all that kind of stuff.
It's certainty, right? Yeah. Because we are still, that's one of the other things, right? That there's going to be access. People are going to come look at the house, but the seller has the peace of mind of knowing, like, I've sold my house. Eric's buying it, so there's not that same type of pressure for those showings. They're doing it more out of a courtesy to me than they are like, oh my God, I got a showing. I want to make sure I'm going to bake cookies and set them out so that, we ask that they straighten up and they keep the house in the same condition that it was when we met to write the contract. But, we understand how to facilitate the sale of a property, and for retail buyers, there's retail expectations, and we have the ability to manage that stuff and relieve that pressure and responsibility from the seller.
Yeah. So anybody listening that's doing some deals, this is free money. Like you're getting these from your current leads already. So Eric, if tell people again, if they want to reach out and get communicate with you, what's the best way?
The best way to get a hold of me is either on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Just look up Eric Brewer. On Instagram, it is Eric_Brewer_invest. You can find me on Instagram. I talk a lot about same stuff we talked about, sales, novations. I'm constantly sharing stuff about that and how it works and experiences that we've had. But those are the best places to find me. And if you want to see anything about the course, you can go to brewermethod.com. There's tons of information on there, testimonials. It's got the full menu of what you get with the course. And you can even schedule a consult on there. If you want to chat with somebody about the course and what it comes with for 15 minutes, you can schedule that right there at brewermethod.com.
That's awesome. So anyone listening, we'll have all those links in the show notes as well too, so you guys can grab them. Hey, Eric, we're about out of time, but I wanted to tell you, thanks for coming on. This is awesome. This is a lot of info.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure thing. Hey,
well, thanks for the leads, by the way. We're having a great time working those leads. We've bought a couple houses already in the short time we've been working with. So we really appreciate that. I'm glad that you guys are now in Collective Genius, right?
Yeah. We're in CG too.
So you'll be there in September?
Yep. Yeah, we'll be there. That's a good group there.
That group has changed my life.
You know what? Before we go, since you're talking about leads, do you know your numbers? I'm so impressed with you, whoever's managing your leads. So they're converting 54% of cold leads into appointments with a 93% show rate.
Yeah.
Like that's insane. Most people I talk to are like, oh, we can't get them on the phone or whatever. I mean, your people got to be calling in seconds. And then 93% of them show up. Like that's
that was a year ago we started digging into that. And the reason we have such a high appointment rate is because we have such a high contact rate. And we answer like over 90% of our incoming calls live. And of course we get web forms and internet leads and stuff like that. We treat those the same way we do incoming calls. And for us, if we contact those people within 60 seconds, we've seen a tremendous difference in our ability to get a hold of them. And then that has a direct correlation to how many of those people, when we talk to them, are willing to schedule an appointment. And then we have somewhere post-appointment. So lead manager talks to a person, they schedule an appointment for Tuesday, but hey, Bryan will be coming out then. There's like 8 contacts that we send to the seller prior to the appointment, because we were hovering a little over a year ago at like 65% appointment show rate. And when we implemented these touch points between the phone call and the actual appointment, one is which we send out like a baseball card sort of style intro of the acquisitions person that's coming to meet him, say, hey, here's Bryan, here's what he looks like. He's into football. He's got 2 kids. He grew up in, Central York School District. So it creates a little bit of a familiarity with them, prior to the appointment. And we've seen our closing percentage go up as a result too, because it doesn't feel like a stranger that's shown up. There's a little bit of rapport that was built before we got there. And our salespeople were just actually able to close more because of it. So we're pretty proud of those, but it was a lot of hard work. If you ever get a chance to look at our organization here, we have dashboards on TVs. There's literally 4 of them in every office. So everybody knows exactly what's going on every day, every minute with leads and contacts and appointments.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Benmont sent me over one of your dashboards. I'm like, gee, man, this thing is sweet.
Yeah. It's like an air traffic controller tower in this place.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. Hey guys, so everyone listening, like Eric's got some knowledge here. He can save you like 20 years worth of bumps, hit him up. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks for coming. We're about out of time, but
no sweat.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, everyone listening. Yeah, get out there. Reach out to Eric. Go out there, crush it, and close some deals.